There are a lot of members in the Object Show community, full of young people from all around the world who stumbled upon a web series created by two twin brothers in 2010, and many of them have gone on to create their own spin of the concept, a number of inanimate objects competing in a total drama-like game for a grand prize. We all have created our own object show at some point. It's a canon event for every member of the OSC, and if you're lucky, your object show might go viral, getting hundreds of thousands or even millions of views. This is a very notable accomplishment for every OSC member, which leads to their creation getting remembered for years to come. However, not all object shows are that lucky. There are some object shows that become a hot topic in the community for a while, but after that those same object shows fade to obscurity, forgotten by everyone in the OSC. I have talked about 10 such object shows in the past, and due to popular demand I have decided to make a sequel to the series. I want to thank you guys for the massive support on the first installment, and without wasting any more time, here are 10 more object shows everyone has forgotten about. The first object show on our list is a rather old and odd one. It started a long time ago in 2016 and has been through multiple iterations over the years. The show I am talking about is The Land of Brinton, made by Brandon Edwards, or more popularly known as Brand Extra Extreme and Diamond Frost. The beginnings of The Land of Brinton date all the way back to August 1st, 2016, when the very first episode of the show came out, and as you can see, it definitely looks like it was made nearly a decade ago. Anyways, the show would go on to have some more episodes for another year, receiving the first part of its 5th episode on its first year anniversary. But unfortunately, this 5th episode never finished as the show was rebooted after this episode came out.
Ooh, peanut butter. I still have some room.
This reboot, which came out on New Year's Day 2018, was definitely a step up in quality compared to the original series, but to be fair, the bar was very low to begin with. However, this reboot never progressed past the first episode. But then another reboot of TLOB was announced, this time with the new name Brinton Chronicles. We got 2 intros of Brinton Chronicles, and then the name changed back to The Land of Brinton when releasing the first episode. And once again, this second reboot never got another episode, and instead we got one final reboot in 2019. However, this reboot was a bit different from the others. As opposed to it being fully animated, this was an animatic, and the color scheme was also more vibrant this time round. And most importantly, the show would actually get more than one episode this time. A second episode released in May 2020 and a third in November of that year. But weirdly, the third episode had very weird and rushed writing in my opinion, which makes it my least favorite episode of this reboot. And after the third episode, the show was cancelled. Again. And this time it wasn't coming back. It was over for good. After the show got cancelled, Brandon would go on to make another object show, this time a joke show called Article Planet, and then his channel will get hacked and deleted. All reboots of The Land of Brinton have since been archived by a channel named The Land of Brinton Official, though unlike the name suggests, this is not an official channel made by Brandon, it is just some random guy who saved the episodes. So in total, we had 4 iterations of The Land of Brinton, with a total of 10 episodes across all versions in a span of 3 years. If I had to say my opinion regarding this show, just like Alex said in one archived episode, it was wasted potential. The show looked visually nice and I personally didn't hate the characters, but as I said, the writing wasn't the greatest, and the animation was also pretty off as some scenes had motion in them, which I don't think is how the animatic style works. Nonetheless, it is safe to say that a lot of people have forgotten about the show now. I mean, it has been years since it went off. Imagine making an object show that not only will blow up, but will also go on to create a whole new subgenre of object shows. That's exactly what happened with Burger Brawl, made by Gary in 2020. You see, Burger Brawl was not your ordinary object show. Well, I mean, it was, but there was one notable difference that made it stand out. Instead of making his own characters just for the show, Gary would actually use the mascots of his friends as contestants in the show. In a Q&A video he made later, he stated that he got the idea of using his friends from another show named Freedom Island Deluxe by Quintus Minimus.
From Bend Blocks, what gave you the idea of making a show with your friends? I got the general idea of Burger Brawl from this one online show called Freedom Island Deluxe, which was made by Quintus Minimus, which is sadly not up now. And I found it a bit more interesting that the characters were actually based on real people and not just fan-made OCs. So I thought it would be a bit interesting if I tried something like that with Burger Brawl.
The show premiered on September 26th of 2020, and while it did take a bit for the show to gain momentum, when it did, it was big. Many people got inspired by the idea of using your friends' OCs as characters in your object show, which led to many object shows of such a template titled Friends shows being made, such as Mickey Mouse Battle House. Burger Brawl would go on to get a whopping 17 episodes and receive remastered episodes of its oldest episodes. So that was that. It was all sunshines and rainbows since. Until Gary was exposed of predatory actions. In June 2023, an anonymous Twitter user would make a tweet exposing Gary of pedophilia and grooming, which led to his reputation getting tarnished overnight. Due to these allegations, which he would address in a video later, he would end up packing his bags and leaving the community. Apparently, he has been caught doing similar acts since, but that's not what this chapter is about. And yeah, that's how Burger Brawl's story abruptly ended. While I don't support Gary and his actions by any means, I have to say that this is one of my favorite object shows of all time. This object show was hilarious and I really liked the humor and the characters. It's a shame that it would never receive a conclusion. Unlike the other object shows we would go over here, which haven't received updates in years, Burger Brawl is likely forgotten due to its creator. People just don't want to remember a groomer's object show. Still, the Friends show subgenre has basically died since the controversy, and Burger Brawl is now a thing of the past. Object Filler was an object show made by Diamond Cup 67 which launched on November 23rd of 2016. This was an object show, especially the first season, that has been praised for its animation quality since it came out. I mean, look at this.
Man, I'm so bored. I haven't done anything fun in 3 years. Don't worry, Windowy. We can do something fun with Drummy.
Clearly, the object show was meant to be a joke show, which are object shows that are basically meant to be low effort and satirical in a way. This show became popular for the joke quality and further popularized the joke show genre in the OSC. The show would go on to have a good run in its first season, with it actually being finished within a year. Well, technically it was cancelled, but whatever. But the real change comes in season 2. The second season, titled Object Filler Again, that came in 2018, was a vast jump in quality and direction, with it actually looking like a real object show. I remember watching the first episode for the first time and losing my mind at how awesome this was, with it immediately winning my heart. The season would go on to have a consistent run for the next 2 years, getting 4 episodes in total. It would take over a year for the 5th episode to come out, but it's okay, this still looks great. Wait, what does the description say? Yup, in the description of the 5th episode of OFA, Diamond said that the show was cancelled, with him stating that it was due to personal reasons. He also said that he wouldn't make object show content at all after that. And he didn't. This is the last object show video on his channel as of me writing this. He made a new show, though this time without object characters, titled Battle Show Cool Yeah, but that only has 1 episode as of now. And given how it's been 4 years since the last episode of the Object Filler series, it is safe to say that everyone has forgotten about it. This next object show, while being controversial for its time, is also mainly a relic of the past. This object show was Dom Erickson or Mewtwo's Pet Wolf's Objects at War, premiering on March 28th of 2013, predating Zany Lee's Object Overload and Yellow and Giru's Paper Puppets. The show was very infamous back when it came out, primarily due to one character, Bone. You see, Bone was a character that was recommended by FriesFan7844, who was known as a very infamous person back then. His story is too long to go over here, so I'll link BeAwesomeOne's video on him if you want to know more. But to put it simply, people didn't like this character as Fries will always recommend him in camps left and right. But despite the backlash, Bone was still very focused on the show, most likely due to Fries being involved with the production, which led to every other character being completely ignored and the show being ruined in the process. Just like Object Filler, Objects at War would have a complete first season, ending with just 4 episodes, with the credits even listing a few of the characters that would appear in the next season. But unlike Object Filler, there was never a next season. Due to some drama, Dom would leave the internet after Objects at War ended, and he hasn't returned to this day. When Objects at War started, it definitely had promise to become a cult classic, but it ended up being nothing more than a train wreck. Fry's fan really ruined all the potential the show had, and now it's just made fun of for the lack of character development outside of Bone and for having pretty disproportionate limb sizes. But alas, it has been ages since Objects at War has become a discussion point in the community, and everyone has basically moved on. Ultimate Insanity has to be the most 2018 object show out there. Made by Daniel Rapitis, this object show has a bit of a history. The earliest traces of this object show date back to August 2nd, 2016. Wait, that's like the same day as the Land of Brinton, when the beta version of Ultimate Insanity was made when Daniel was just 12 years old. It wasn't even called Ultimate Insanity at the time, rather it was called Object Insanity, which I believe was changed to avoid confusion with Donato's much more popular show of the same name. This show managed to accomplish something which I thought was impossible. Make the Land of Brinton 2016 look like a masterpiece.
Do you remember how did you win the first challenge? I think I'm gonna go.
But unfortunately, the show was short-lived, as in May 2017, the show got cancelled after 3 episodes. And now it was time to start fresh. In October 2017, we would get our first look into Daniel's new show, Ultimate Insanity. It looked far more promising than whatever that was, and it seemed like Daniel was cooking something good. After some intros and time lapses, you would get a full-fledged trailer for the first official trailer. After some intros and time lapses, we would get a first. After some intros and time lapses, we would get a full-fledged trailer for the first official episode on August 9th, 2018. And guess what dropped on the 20th of that month? After almost a whole year of waiting, Ultimate Insanity was finally out. On release, the show got pretty positive feedback from viewers, and even I thought this was pretty good. What followed was another episode in March 2019, some shorts on the show's characters, and a great promise on the future of Ultimate Insanity. Now all eyes were on episode 3. Where was Daniel gonna take the show forward? Well, in July 2019 he would post an update. He said that this episode was going to be rather ambitious and that it was going to be half an hour long, so the episode wasn't going to come out for a while. He also gave a sneak peek of the episode in the update video. And he was right, it did take a long time for the episode to be finished, as the first part of the episode was released in May 2020, nearly a year after the update. The episode did look like it took a while to make, as it was a big step up from the other episodes in terms of production quality, and it definitely created anticipation for the next part of the episode. And on October 3rd of the same year, the next part was out. Hold on, why is it only 5 minutes long? And why does it look unfinished? Well, Daniel will post about that very soon. Just about a week after that last episode, Daniel would explain that the show was officially cancelled with episode 3B. He stated that he had lost interest in making Ultimate Insanity altogether and how it was affecting his mental health, which led to him making the decision to cancel the show altogether, and to put the episode out unfinished, which explains the animation in that episode and why it feels like a conclusion to the story. Nonetheless, Daniel has moved on and has since made a new object show named Project Breakout, which is still going on to this day, being on its 4th episode at the time this video is being made. So all in all, Ultimate Insanity had a reasonable end. While I haven't made an object show myself yet, at least of a similar scale, I can still understand the burnout that Daniel had faced during its production. But alas, the show is now forgotten and will most likely stay that way for the foreseeable future. Picture this. You watch BFDI for the first time and you think it's the greatest thing ever, so you want to make your own spin of its concept. You take inspiration from BFDI and make your spin into a reality. There's just one problem, however. You took a little too much inspiration. So much so that people call you out and say that your creation is a blatant copy of the real deal, and it ends up messing with your image in the community. Well, that's what happened with Nicholas McConnell, going by Sleepmaster Online when he showed his object show Battle for Isle Sleep to the world in 2013. When you see the 5 episodes it got, especially the first 2, the similarities between the show and BFDI are crazy. He even copied the challenges. People understandably were upset at how unoriginal Nicholas was when it came to this show, and they called him out in the comments of the episodes. We can't see the comments of the actual episodes as they have been turned off since, and the Wayback Machine didn't really load the pages. But we can see what Nicholas had to say regarding the comments in the description of episode 1.
Comments have been disabled because I couldn't stand any more assertions that this was copied from BFDI. Around August 2013, I imagined this show as a version of BFDI, and I was honestly stupid not thinking it would need to be original. And I seriously confess, I'd do a lot better if I were to cancel BFIS and start a new show now.
And then the series wouldn't get an update for years. Nick would post some shorts with an updated visual style, but nothing very significant to the main series. That was until 2016, when a video was posted titled "Here are the parts of BFIS 6 I animated." It's exactly what the title says. All the scenes that were animated of BFIS 6 by what Nick says was late 2014. In the description of the video, he would also post the full script to the episode. But if the episode isn't out yet and we have the script, then that only means one thing. Yup, in another video he made in the future, Nick would confirm our worst fears.
Guys, it's Fabrice here, in Computery, and I just wanted to give you the news. That I have immunity? No, it's that ever since BFIS 5 got hate, we stopped animating episodes and now we have no motivation which will enable us to continue to animate episodes anymore. We're going to college age, so sorry, it just won't work. In 2013 and 2014 we had lots of fun making the content, but that's gone now. I was looking forward to the physical challenge, we haven't had one in a while. We may consider airing some episodes by script if we're in the mood, but otherwise the show's cancelled.
As he said, due to the hate, lack of motivation in college, he was dropping the show altogether, and the show went completely silent from there. However, in January 2022, Nicholas would be back with a little surprise. That's right, a reboot of Battle for Isle Sleep was now being made titled Isle Return with Reha City, though I don't know if I would call it a reboot as it seems to be picking off of where BFIS ended, as shown in the sneak peek we received in the video, and for some reason the audio quality got worse after 6 years of tech advancement.
I don't remember, but I do remember being stuck in that tube for 3.5 straight years. Luckily I managed to eat part of myself, otherwise I would have starved to death.
Unfortunately, people didn't care about this show's return as seen by the low view count of the announcement, and it would take another 2 years to hear anything again about Reha City. And in the update video that did follow, it was said that the first episode would come out in 2024.
But don't you guys worry, the reboot episode of IRWRC is being aimed for 2024.
This was the last video regarding the show, by the way, and it's almost 2026, so I think we know how that's holding up. Battle for Isle Sleep started 11 years ago. My god. And back then, it understandably received pretty sour reception. The show didn't do anything really new and was mainly just copying BFDI for most of its short run, so it didn't really stand out and now it's just forgotten to time. Sleep tight forever, BFIS. Okay, there isn't much to say about this one, at least compared to the last 2 entries, so I won't go too much into detail here. So basically, on October 12th of 2013, the world was introduced to this.
Hey, Easter egg! Guess what? What?
Object Brawl was an object show made by Extreme Animations, and it looked like it was inspired by Inanimate Insanity. A lot. It even used its earliest assets. At least Battle for Sleep had an original visual style. Nonetheless, when the show came out, it was okay for the time. It's not like any other object show was trying to be original. Thankfully, the show would improve a lot in future episodes. Speaking of which, the show got at least 9 episodes in total, after which it was cancelled for unknown reasons. These episodes didn't have a long life under Extreme's own channel, as he would delete his channel by 2015, though multiple re-uploads of the show do exist online. Yup, that's it. That's all there is to say about Object Brawl. I said there wasn't a lot, and it's safe to say that it's now been forgotten forever. Another object show with the infamous Object Blank naming template and a show with much more to talk about is Object Planet by Anthony Jones, which began on February 8th, 2014. But for some reason, the episodes were deleted after their initial release and are now re-uploaded on Jones' channel out of chronological order. Were these posted on an older account by Anthony which was deleted and these are now re-uploaded on his new channel we are watching these on? I don't know about that, but what I do know is that this is pure cinema.
Greetings and salutations. I am your host, Weasel.
Anthony says that he was bullied a lot for this, and I mean he was 9 when he made this show, much better than my 9-year-old self would if I'm gonna be honest. Anyways, the show would run for a full season, ending on its 15th episode in November of 2015, and after that, a second season was promised. However, that second season has a pretty rocky road. The original second season was going to be titled Island of the Dead, and I believe there was a pilot of that season. However, I can't seem to find that pilot anymore, and the only thing that remains of it is the intro. Then a reboot of the whole series was planned titled Object Planet Revived. There were several intros that came of it, but the show never officially came out, with the remains of it being posted on Anthony's main channel. Then yet another reboot was being made, simply titled Object Planet again, but nothing came of that either. But finally, after all of this, in 2019, we got something. Yes, an actual continuation to the series was finally in the works, simply titled Object Planet 2, and it seemed like we were finally getting somewhere. Fast forward to the 10-year anniversary of Object Planet in 2024, the show is cancelled. Yeah, I know that was anticlimactic, but there isn't a lot of information between these 2 points in time, as almost everything in between is now taken down. But nonetheless, Anthony said that he was discontinuing Object Planet due to him being busy with adult life, relationships between crew falling apart, and his discomfort with the show in general. He would post one final video showing all of the progress that was made on the season before cancellation, and he has moved on to making other content on his personal channel. Looking back at Object Planet, I understand the hate. It wasn't the most quality object show ever created.
Uh-oh, we better run. Why? That thing.
But considering that this was created when he was around 9 to 10 years old, it shouldn't be surprising on how it turned out. But still, Object Planet is now forgotten by basically everybody now. For our last object show of the video, we have to get some context. Our story starts in 2014, when user Vince Doan, now going by Shattered Waters, would make an object show titled Inanimate Objects. The show would go on to have a slow run for 2 years, receiving a total of 66 episodes across 3 seasons. But unfortunately, after such a stellar run, the show would go on a hiatus and Vince would get busy with other stuff. And in 2018, Inanimate Objects was cancelled and Vince rebooted it afresh. The show, which had 46 contestants before cancellation, was shrunk to just 12, and now a whole new story was attached to it. But what about the characters that didn't make the cut? What will happen to them? Well, to answer that, the after story was created, solely to show what happened to the rest of the contestants afterwards. This show didn't have the contestants that were in the 2018 reboot or the ones that Vince took from other shows. He did that, by the way, though it did have everyone else. When this show came out, I remember being very interested in it. I was a fan of IO at the time, so I wanted to see what would happen next. The show premiered on January 1st of 2020. However, it wouldn't be until September of that year when the next episode came out. And during this time, Vince would move channels from his old one that has since been deleted to the Shattered Waters channel he uses today. So when the episode did come out, I remember being confused as to why it was on another channel. Regardless, Vince said that the episode took this long was because of issues regarding writing the script. However, in 2022, we got bad news.
Yep, the rumor is true, guys. Inanimate Objects and the After Story are cancelled.
Yup, the After Story and the Inanimate Objects reboot were both cancelled due to Vince not being happy with where the shows were heading. He announced a reboot titled Nick of Time, but that got cancelled before even taking off. and now Vince has moved on from inanimate objects altogether, which led to inanimate objects and the after story now being forgotten relics of the OSC.